Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, Kaylin Kyle. Pour one out for David Goss, who's not in Frisco, not as times long gone by would have suggested for the GA Cup, but in Bradenton, Florida, calling the best of the best. And the best of the best, Doyle, seem to be from Major League Soccer. Get some, Chelsea. Get some, World. The results are flowing in. You can watch on MLS Season Pass. Of course, Dave is doing play-by-play in color on these, but every single time, I don't know how to like emotionally compartmentalize this. Do I get just completely jacked up, Doyle, because MLS Academy teams are whooping the world?
Yeah.
Or do I hold back and say, okay, well, it's just, these are 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and it's just too early.
You could be on both sides of that, right? Like, one game in the grand scheme of things doesn't mean anything, but this isn't happening in a vacuum. What we're seeing is the infrastructure that MLS and US and Canadian soccer have built out over the past 15 years, really, because it started with the USSDA in 2007, which is now MLS Next Pro. That has created an environment where MLS teams can create that assembly line of talent where the best kids get the best coaching and go up against the best teams in the world, whether it's Chelsea's Academy or River Plate's, Flamengo, like all around the world, these teams are coming to the GA Cup, and we're seeing MLS teams get a lot of wins over the past couple of days. It's great, and it bodes well for U.S. soccer and for Canadian soccer, and especially for MLS. So I think you can be really hyped about it. And I would caution you, though, that it is still youth soccer. So don't let your emotions rest too much on one particular outcome.
I will just say Columbus beat down Club America 7-0. So look, the touchdown on America. Did you
text Rich that one?
I have not texted noted non-America fan Rich about that result, but it's Sounders U15s beat Arsenal. Like, you can go up and down this list and you can get yourself excited, but go watch the games. MLS Season Pass, David Goss in his happy place, telling you about the stars of the future.
David Goss would say that Florida is still not his happy place, even though I'm sure he's having a wonderful week.
Yeah, he'd rather be in Frisco, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
He'd rather be in Jersey with us, Andrew.
Exactly. I don't know about that either. Maybe Long Island or, on the banks of on the East River. But
I love Jersey. Don't hate on Jerseys. They got good bagels and they got a good Italian food.
I like Jersey too, but Dave knows this neck of the woods a little bit better than we do. We're newcomers to these parts. A reminder for you, U.S. Open Cup is returning this week. We are seeing USL Championship teams enter the competition. MLS will enter the competition in the third round at the end of April. I think 18 MLS teams come in. And then we go from there. All right, best thing you saw on Matchday 6, Doyle, because we are an MLS podcast, as much as we want to just dedicate this to the GA Cup.
The return of Andre Blake. Given where the Union are in their CCL campaign, when he went down with that groin injury a couple of weeks ago, I was legit worried, because we've seen those types of injuries keep guys out for months on end. It's been 3 weeks now, and he's back already. He wasn't tested too much in the game this weekend, but it was good to see him back. My eyes are fixed pretty firmly on CCL, and then my eyes are fixed pretty firmly on tonight, because I'm a UConn guy, and UConn's national championship, and Andre Blake coming back. That's good vibes for my Huskies. So checking a couple boxes with that one.
Andre Blake has good strength in the groin per Jim Curtin. That allowed him to come back quickly. If you want to come back and you want to have a little bit of a ease back in MLS play, Sporting Kansas City is a pretty good team to do that against these days. A lot of low percentage shots, sort of easy saves, build your confidence the way that goes. I was also going to make a strength in the groin joke for you, Doyle, because I hope you get kicked there tonight.
Oh, boy.
As the national championship
You're
goes
a big
down.
San Diego State guy.
I am now, baby.
24 hours. All right.
I am now.
Fine.
No, boo, Huskies. No Huskies. I listened to you from you and Christina Uncle, who I didn't know was a UConn grad as well. Mm-hmm. So she's trolling me on Instant Replay, which you can check out on MLS Season Pass and YouTube. Kaylin, what is your best thing you saw in Matchday 6?
St. Louis, just kidding. Minnesota United, baby. I mean, how can you not love the Loons at this point? 3 road wins, which everyone knows in Major League Soccer are very difficult to do. And then 2 draws at home. One of them probably should have been a win against Vancouver with a little bit of a late drama and extra time. But yeah, you got to love what Adrian Heath is doing in Minnesota right now. And yeah, I was delighted Saturday, smiling ear to ear like a little kid on Christmas. Had a few glasses of wine when I got home from work. FaceTime Adrian, said, "Well done. Thank you for not allowing me to get ripped on my show again from Sasha."
Did you take special joy from the fact that it played out basically exactly the way we said it would play out on last week's show? Yeah, it always feels pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It really does. No, it was just great. And it was great to have him on the show after just the interview, because it wasn't your typical Adrian Heath interview. It was almost like he was choking up a little bit when we asked about Emmanuel Reynoso. What does this mean for the club? I mean, he did it without Robin Lod, like 2 of their star midfielders. So yeah, they're creating something really special there. And, we already know their fan base is incredible. Their home stadium when they win, the Wonderwall. So yeah, I officially changed my last name to Kaylin Heath. I was waiting for Matchday 6 to see if we can continue that winning streak alive. So I'm no longer Kaylin Heath Kyle. I am Kaylin Heath.
That's not true. I don't believe you on that. The brand is too strong with Kaylin Kyle. You cannot take on the Heath name. Let your children carry that one on.
Yeah, I will.
Your brand is way too strong to be doing that.
Right here. This is we got the little stadium shot in the back at the Loons. Hendrickson, or I think that's Hayden. Yeah. So.
I will say this for Adrian Heath: what he has done without Reynoso is pretty incredible. Because everything was sort of built around getting Reynoso the ball the last few years and then seeing what he would do with it. And by and large, he did special things. And because he did special things, the Loons were in the playoffs and they had the chance to potentially go win hardware. Obviously didn't do it. But there's also a part of me, as much as I know that Adrian Heath is just, it kills him to not have that player in his team, to not have him in the country, in the Twin Cities, and not know when that will be the case, if ever. There's a little bit of me that thinks Adrian every game when he goes and fills out that lineup card and he's like, 4-4-2, 2 blocks of 4. Let's go defend. We are the underdog. Nobody believes in us. Can we create chances? Well, let's get 1 or 2. Let's be more efficient and let's win games people don't expect. Like, I think among the coaches in the league, he is one of the ones that I would think, well, this just sort of fits the personality. Like, he's going to motivate these guys. He's going to wrap his mind around this quickly, and he's going to create a culture that's doing what they're doing, which is just shutting out outside noise and just grinding it out.
No, and I think just piggybacking off your point, I think for me anyways, when I saw that St. Louis, obviously we're on 360, so we're going through 872 matches at a time, but the second 45 minutes, Minnesota started actually playing. So they sat in, but then they were like, hold on a minute. We can actually play against the St. Louis side. Yes, they high press, but as long as we get past that front 4, correct me on the name, I'm probably going to butcher this, but Bongo for Minnesota,
Bongwani.
Unbelievable. He was so good in that match. So I think if you look at this side and, all the pressure, all the questions to all these players, and me speaking to some of the players last week, I went to one of the training sessions just to see how they were prepping for the match. And of course I asked the question, they were like, it's so funny because obviously you're our friend. It's such an annoying question to get asked now because we've moved past it. Obviously the first 2 weeks we were devastated that our star man wasn't here. But we look around the locker room and we have a lot of talent. We have the talent to get the job done. So yeah, we've had to change formation. Yeah, we've had to change personnel in different roles and maybe how we play. But I think there was a turning point in that St. Louis game, especially in the second 45 minutes. They were like, okay, we can actually play football even without Emmanuel Reynoso, without Robin Lod, which I thought was really cool to see on the road in St. Louis.
When you see the pass maps, it's pretty clear that even when they were playing, they decided, well, we're not doing it through the middle of the park.
No.
Like fullbacks to wingers, skip a line, find a way to evade those areas that St. Louis has been so good in. So what did you see from this game? And I'll just read a quick quote from Adrian Heath on this. Quote, well, obviously we knew that we're going to have to ride our luck a little bit, and at times we did the odd occasion in the first half. Heath told 360 after the match. It was a great interview by you guys. Quote, I thought we had a great defensive shape. We tried to take the middle of the park away. I thought we did a good job of it. And in the second half, we were outstanding. I thought we were far and away the better team. Do you agree with Adrian Heath? And what did you see from St. Louis in this game?
I won't say that they were far and away the better team, but they were the better team on the day. And they were the better team for the reasons that you guys just said in terms of skipping a line when they had to and finding ways to avoid the areas of the pitch where St. Louis have been really good about turning the ball over and getting out in transition, and always having numbers behind the ball in the few moments where it did start to get a little bit frenetic in there. So, I mean, yeah, it was like you guys basically covered it. That like it played out in the way that we thought it would play out, and then you get the one break, whether it's off a set piece or whether it's off a counterattack, or in this case, whether it's off a penalty. It was just it was the very pragmatic approach to this game, and pragmatism works in most leagues.
And I will say for St. Louis, they missed. Like, let's just be honest, they missed a few good opportunities in that first 45 minutes, which would have probably changed the momentum of the match, like it always does when you play at home with a crowd like that. But, I mean, fair play to Minnesota. They weathered the storm, but it's not for the lack of chances that St. Louis had, especially in that first 45 minutes. And I think Klaus had a great opportunity around the 60th minute, the quick turn inside the box. So they did have the opportunities to put this game to bed in the early stages of the games.
Yeah,
see, I'm not a full supporter of Minnesota, you guys.
Look, you've been pulling the St. Louis bandwagon too.
I'm still on that bandwagon, by the way. I'm still on the bandwagon.
It's a big test now. You lose your first match at home, and now you go to Seattle next week.
Yeah.
How do you think we're going to do our managers we're impressed by so far, Doyle? And obviously Bradley Carnell, we've given him so much time so far this season, so we won't push him into that category. How do they respond, in your opinion?
For St. Louis?
Yeah,
it's a good question, because I think a lot of it comes down to how Seattle approached this game. Because what we've seen from Seattle throughout this season is they want to use the ball a lot. And we even saw that against the Galaxy this weekend. It wasn't full 90 minutes, but certainly in that first half, Seattle were all over the ball, stringing passes together, long sequences, taking chances in parts of the field where I think in years past they wouldn't have. And that kind of plays to St. Louis's strength. So it could end up looking like previous iterations or previous games for St. Louis. Like they could end up playing sort of a midfield block like they did against RSL, or they could selectively press high like we've seen from them throughout the first 4 games of the season. It's all on the table for them to play in the manner that I think Bradley Carnell wants them to play. The question is, can you execute that against a team as good as the Sounders? It's different than trying to execute it at home against San Jose.
Here's a question from Connor, who says he's on a hot streak for Extra Time mailbag. This is going to be his 4th show in a row with a question read on air. He hit us with the praying hands emoji. Pray no more, Connor. Your soccer/podcast gods are answering you. He says, what tier would Doyle put Minnesota United in after 5 games? What's the tier?
Tier 3. This team is not a threat to win any trophies as they're currently constructed. They just don't have enough high-end talent, but they look very much like a team that can grind through a regular season, make it to the playoffs, and hurt somebody. That's it. Look, if Reynoso's not coming back, or if they don't have the means to buy him out and replace him, I think that's about the ceiling that you could ask for this team. And then you hope that you spin that forward into 2024 with a better solution in the final third. But right now, it's pretty clear. It's a veteran team, and they're not going to make the same types of mistakes that we saw other teams make pretty regularly against a team like St. Louis.
All right, Loons in tier 3. Tough break for them, but they're unbeaten, Doyle, so I think they'll take it at this point. See if they can climb up the tiers as they sit atop the standings or close to it. My best thing I saw on Matchday 6, I'm going to go runner-up first, not quite a list. This is a pairing, just for definition's sake here. Bernardeschi with the wind-aided Olympico. I would have liked Federico to acknowledge that the role wind played in this was a significant one, because it was blowing 70 kilometers per hour. Just to translate it for those of you north of the border, make sure that you know that we're respecting all of your metric measurements. Also, I think that's 44 miles per hour for those of us here south of that northern border. That is a lot of wind. And if you watched this Olympico, you can see all the corner flags, all the flags up on top of BMO, just like straining from the level of wind. And credit is due to Toronto and Bernardeschi. They understood the role that weather was going to play in that first half. They were just whipping balls at the edge of the 6. and saying, hey, let the wind take it. We're going to jam the box up. We're going to try to put pressure on the Charlotte goalkeeper. And lo and behold, they got an Olympico out of it. So
I hope Bernadeschi comes in your DMs and is like, Andrew, sit this one out.
Yeah,
I can't.
Like, hey,
I'm going to tag him in this podcast.
That's fine. It's a great goal. I'm not discounting the goal. I just wish he would have had that like cheeky wink and been like, hey, it was windy too, eh? You know, like I would have liked to see that.
You wouldn't. If you scored an Olympico in a match, even if it was a 7-aside up here in Jersey and it was wind, you would be like, I meant to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But the beauty of this is that I never will. So I'll never be put in that moral position. I'll always be able to sit here on my high horse and say, well, you should have said this, that, and the other. But my best thing I actually saw is Simon Becher. Kansas stand up. I don't know how connected he is to Kansas anymore, but he is Topeka-born, the Vancouver Whitecaps forward. He has 5 goals and 1 assist in 132 minutes between MLS and CONCACAF Champions League to start his first-team career. Was with Vancouver MLS Next Pro last year after being drafted from SLU, St. Louis University. 4 goals in his first 87 minutes on the field in Major League Soccer.
Set a record.
That's a new record. Cucho had it in 89 minutes last year. This is just a crazy story. The Vancouver Whitecaps were in desperate need of essentially exactly what he's doing, which is a guy inside the 18 who is unhurried but unfussy, I would say. He's not a guy that wants to get on the ball, move it around, try to unbalance teams that way. He is going to get to a spot. It's going to be 1, maybe 2 touches, and that's it.
Are you going to discredit him because they played Montreal, like you're discrediting Bernadeschi's goal because of the win?
But Montreal, there's no outside influences on Montreal. Montreal are what they are. You know, we're talking about the elements here, Kaylin. Nobody can explain those, even meteorologists. But anyway, Doyle, Simon Becher, what do you think, man?
Really, really good movement in and around the box. I think he's a little bit more clever on the ball than you just gave him credit for. One of the things that stood out in this game, and stood out in the very brief moments that we saw it in CCL play, because I am the type of lunatic who watched the away leg of Vancouver's CCL game. So
big Real España guy. So that
when he and Brian White are on the field together, they just have pretty insane chemistry in the box, and it's kind of old school 2 center forward chemistry. We don't see a lot of that type of thing. Like it's always one guy dropping in modern 2 forward setups. But these guys, they're bringing some of that back, and Vancouver have done a good job all year of progressing the ball and getting the ball into the box. What they haven't done a good job of is finishing those chances off, and particularly White. White has found chances. He has not finished them. So I thought it was very good, not just soccer sense, but like good karma for Becher. The first thing he did in this game was just tee Brian White up. Like he gave him an open look from 8 yards out, and White smashed it into the corner. And it's like, if you can feed the starting striker, that comes back and you end up getting repaid for that by the karma gods. And that's exactly what happened later in this game. It does present kind of I'm not going to say an issue, but like a happy problem for Vanni Sartini to solve, because he has not traditionally been a 2-striker guy. He's always wanted, whether it's played a 3-4-2-1 a couple years ago, and then for most of the past year now, it's been a 4-2 or 4-3-2-1, the old Christmas tree. I don't think he can go back to that. I think after this performance, and given what Becher has done, I think you got to stick with the 2 forwards up top. And I think that for the time being anyway, that would seem to solve what has been the biggest problem for this Vancouver team, which is they've played great out of the gates, half an hour every game. They have not turned that into leads. In this game, they turned it into a lead and then just kept adding to it because these guys were working so well together, admittedly against a 10-man Montreal side that has been dire this year.
I want to also say the reason Montreal were 10 men is because Simon Becher drew a red card.
Yeah. Yep.
A Dog So red card. No, not Dog. Yeah, Dog So. Yeah, last man on Waterman. So all the goals came after that. There's also some forced change for Vanni Sartini. Sergio Cordova is hurt. He's out until sometime in May, it seems like. And Ryan Gauld, I believe, had a hamstring issue in this one. So that's often why you see the 2 players behind the forward. But he'd been playing Cordova and White together as well. So for the time being, I don't think you can take White and Becher off the field, and I'm assuming that they won't midweek in Champions League against LAFC at BC Place. But a 5-0 win for Vancouver. They absolutely needed that one. gives them a little bit of momentum going into their continental play, and also just gets them off the mark here with their first win of the season and puts them above the playoff line into 9th. All right, let's talk coaches. Obviously, we're impressed by Adrian Heath and Bradley Carnell. That's a given what they have done and the amount of time that we've dedicated, certainly to Bradley, but also I think to Adrian in his efforts to get things going without Emmanuel Reynoso. But Kalen, you're going to take Brian Schmetzer.
I have to interrupt. Bernardeschi just tweeted out the clip of the Olympico.
What did he say?
He said, "So happy to score in our stadium with our fans. One more point in the right direction."
Yep.
Come on, TFC.
You know what else?
Nothing about the wind, Andrew.
No,
There's
maybe
nothing in there about
maybe
the wind.
he is. It's kind of hidden. He's alluding to it when he says
There's nothing hidden in there, Andrew.
No,
Stop.
The
There's
right
nothing
direction, Kalen. When he says we're pointed in the right direction, the right direction.
Good night, Andrew. Take a day off.
Okay,
Good night.
Try and here. All right, let's talk Brian Schmetzer. Opta had the stat. Many others had it as well. Brian Schmetzer reaches 100 regulation wins. That's excluding the shootouts from way back in the day in 212 matches. That's faster than any manager in MLS history. Bob Bradley and Bruce Arena both did it in 215. Again, those shootout wins, those are some of Bob's, or probably both. 98? Yep. Yeah, 98 as well as obviously from 96 with Bruce. So a little bit of stat massaging there for Brian, but doesn't discount the accomplishment. And they go to LA and win 2-1. Kalen?
I mean, the biggest thing, okay, they win. They have depth within the side, but I love what he did. He always is a great man manager. He's getting results. He's got a deep squad, so you can rotate. But last week, obviously, due to international break, you're without some of your biggest stars up top, without your Montero, without Roldan, without Rui Diaz. So what do? Jordan Morris goes as the 9, Leo Chu, the Brazilian 22-year-old, out on that left-hand flank. They get 4 goals, 4 assists. Now, if you're Brian Schmetzer, you're thinking, okay, do I go back to what has already worked for me this season? We're one of the only teams that are undefeated. Or do I stick with the lineup that I had last week? And obviously there were still some players rolling in due to international break. And everyone knows when you are away with international duty, you come back a little bit sluggish. Some people, I mean, Boanga would maybe say otherwise up in LAFC. So I love that he had, I'm not allowed to say it on here, the BALLS to go with Jordan Morris up top and keep Leo Chu out on the wing. Because first goal, who is it? The pair of them. Second goal, Leo Chu says, "I see you, Jordan. I don't need you. I'm going to strike this outside the 18-yard box." This is a great problem for Brian Schmetzer to have, but also a kind of a scary one, because if you're an international player, we kind of had this discussion on MLS 360. I was asking the guys of Bradley and Sasha. It's a dream to go and play with your national team. It's a dream to represent your country. And then you come back with your club team and you're finding yourself on the bench because players have stepped up in positions that you have already, solidified yourself in. So I don't know what he does. This is why I'm not a manager. This is why I'm here. But it's a great, it kind of could go one of two ways. It could be a great problem to have, or your big players like your Rui Diaz. Obviously, we saw him kind of coming off the bench already, and your Montero. How did they react to this? Are they working harder in training to get back into the 11? Or are they thinking, hold on a minute, I went away on international duty. I want my spot back. So I love it. I'm absolutely in love with it. I love Seattle. I think they have the most depth and in Major League Soccer at the moment. And they're just such a good, fun team to watch up top.
I think they had the most depth even before Leo Chu started to prove that he can be a significant player in this league.
Yep.
Right. And then that was going into the season, we looked at what Seattle had done in terms of acquiring guys like Eber and pushing guys through their system like Jackson Reagan or, the kids, Josh Atencio, Daniel Leyva, obviously Obed Vargas coming back. And I said, this team going to be at the top of the West this year because they have pieces who can contribute if Raul Ruiz needs to take a week off or João Paulo slows down a little bit. The one thing that they hadn't had was the type of wide threat. Like Jordan Morris is like when he's healthy, he has been a best 11 caliber winger on one side. Same with Christian Roldan on the other side. Neither of those guys beat anybody off the dribble, right? They're really just brilliant in combination play. They're brilliant defensively. Jordan in particular is great at getting into the box and finishing plays off. Neither of those guys beat anybody off the dribble. And at times, what we had seen from the Sounders is they have struggled against teams that say, okay, we're going to stay compact and we're going to make you beat us 1v1 on the flanks. They didn't have anybody in their cadre of wingers who could do that. Leo Chu can do that now. Now, granted, that's not how the goal was created, right? That was just Lodeiro being brilliant and putting him into space, and Chu having both the speed and the awareness and then the left foot to put it on a platter for Morris. But having this kid now who's comfortable in Seattle, he talked about how having found a community of Brazilians there who have made it easier for him to settle after a pretty long year and a half. Having him now who's comfortable in Seattle and having him with a different skill set without, but then specifically with the ball than the other guys, that like there is no reason to think that Seattle is not going to continue to get better and better and better this year. I don't know if we're going to continue to see Jordan Morris starting at center forward.
We have to.
If
you keep scoring goals, I mean, if you keep him as the number 9, surely he is the golden boot runner for you. If he continues to play in that number 9 role, because you saw him at college, that's where he scored all of his goals. Don't shake your head, Andrew.
You got Rui Diaz. He's not gonna. But that's the beauty from Brian Schmetzer, right? And I completely agree with you, Kaylin. Like the decision by Brian, and I think it's both like a logical one and an easy one for him to make, given the performance before and also the opponent. But Brian Schmetzer is nothing if not pragmatic. And he's looking at that Galaxy team and he's saying, how are they going to play? Well, they're going to push their right back way up. They're going to try to advance numbers forward and they're going to possess the ball. So why go back to a team that, I mean, they can counterattack. Don't get me wrong. With Jordan on the left and Rui Diaz up top, they were still going to be a threat on the counter. But like, let's lean into it. Let's rotate Nico Lodeiro out into that little space to combine with Leo Chu and have Jordan Morris be the runner in behind. Bam, goal. Let's put Alex Roldan at left back when he normally plays right back, and also create just a possession hub that keeps Caligari from getting too far forward for the Galaxy, but also gives us every opportunity to have a guy who can play the ball, unlike Nuhu at times, forward into dangerous positions. Like, I just think Brian Schmetzer is an absolute genius in this league because he knows who his best players are. He knows what parts of the field they're going to impact the opponent the most, and he just puts them there. Okay. And he's changed it up. Last year, he was like, look, end of the year, teams have figured us out a little bit. We need a change up. Now they can create in possession as well as on the counterattack. Both phases. I think
you're playing with fire a little bit, though, Andrew. If you do too much change, especially in a team like this that doesn't need that much change, I just think that's when you find problems, is when a manager tries to over-manage a team and tries to be clever.
What's the change?
I mean, left back to right back to moving someone from left wing to right wing. I just think it's too much change. Go with what is working at this moment in time. Until Jordan Morris is not showing up and Leo Chu is not getting assists or scoring goals, I don't think you can change this. I don't think Seattle fans would want you to change this.
I think that he can, and I think the beauty of this team, I don't think Rui Diaz is sitting back here going, F this. He's been there long enough. He's been with Brian long enough. The culture of the team is a certain way. Rui Diaz's time is coming. Like, he doesn't have to doubt that. He is one of the best 9s in the league. The beauty of this team is that whether it be Christian Roldan, whether it's Rui Diaz, whether it's Nico, whether it's Nuhu, Alex Roldan, Jordan Morris, João Paulo, Atencio, Rusnak, fill in the blank, you have not heard a single complaint from any of those guys as they've been moved around to different positions to fit a need at any given time. That's the beauty of this team. They can all do it. They can all play different roles, and nobody looks around and says, Why am I playing like this? Why am I not in my preferred position?
I'm going to stop you there. As Jordan Morris, I know he's the nicest guy in the world, but if you are banging in goals as a number 9, whether you're not saying it to the public, you're still having those internal conversations with Brian Schmetzer saying, okay, I understand everything for the team, but we're winning as a team with me as your number 9. And I'm not saying make the team about me, and he's the last person to ever be that player. But like, there's definitely conversations being had if you are scoring and winning in the way that Seattle is. As a player, you're not having those conversations with your coaching staff if he does end up putting them back out on the wing and they end up drawing or losing. You're not having that conversation as a player. We'll
see against St. Louis. I just think this is the beauty of the Sounders and what makes them so good and has for many, many years.
Andrew, this is the first time we're fighting. I love it.
I'm not fighting. We're having a spirited conversation
I love it.
of differing viewpoints, but it's still basically the same thing. Now, maybe some fighting is happening among Galaxy faithful because they are still without a win on the season.
Shocking.
Much better second half for them, but it's got to hurt LA to see this stat. 10 straight games, Sounders unbeaten against them, 6 wins, 4 draws. It's the first time any team has gone unbeaten in 10 against the Galaxy. Greg Vanney was pretty jacked up after the game about handballs, and I truly understand why he is. He's been through the ringer the last 3 games with the handball law and interpretations therein, and I think there are some moments where the Galaxy got the raw end of the deal, and in this game it was a Nuhu play in the 93rd, maybe 94th minute with the Galaxy down 2-1, where the ball clearly hits Nuhu in the elbow, but Nuhu's hands are locked behind his back, and Greg did a full interpretive standing demonstration for reporters after the match as to what he saw, why he thought it was a handball, and why he is very frustrated with the law and the interpretation of the law in general. I don't think it's a handball, but I'm curious what you guys think about this particular play. Kaylin, I'll go to you on this one.
Look, I have to be careful because now I'm like Christina Uncle's biggest fan because she always puts me back in my place, and she's actually made me understand the game better, which is scary because thinking, okay, I played 11 years pro. I should understand what a handball is, what a foul is in or outside the 18-yard box. But for me, that one isn't. Yes, his silhouette is bigger, but you can see as the ball hits, he's like literally pulled his hands and interlocked his fingers behind his back. So you can see him. See, this is where I always screw up the sayings and whatnot. Christina's like, this is where you get yourself in trouble. But he's not making his silhouette bigger. He's actually trying to make his silhouette smaller. And like, as a defender, this is the tricky part. I would hate to be a defender in this day and age because you're literally where you generate your power is from your arms. That is how you can, oh my God, I need another coffee here. Like the quick change of directions, the heading up in the air. This is everything. The cat's like, do you want me to take over for you? You can just take the day off. But sorry, the cat's in the background right now. But yeah, for me, not a handball. I'm just talking to talk right now. Not a handball. Anyway.
Doyle, what do you think?
I don't think about stuff like this. I just watch instant replay with Andrew Wiebe and Christina Uncle.
God, what a great answer. What a wonderful answer.
Whatever they say is what my opinion.
What a great answer that is. I do think Nuhu knows that he is going to be a little bit bigger with his hands clasped and drawn up the back.
Clever lad is what you're saying.
I do. Look, any defender should be. If you're not trying to find those extra little advantages, like what are you doing? That's the job. Like if your hands are tucked behind your bottom, let's say, your arms are much tighter to your body. But I don't think it's defenders' responsibilities in that moment to have their arms as tight as humanly possible to their silhouette. We should not punish defenders for having their arms in what is a normal defending balanced position. And I think if you sort of extrapolate and you say, okay, Nuhu, unclasp your hands, keep your elbows where they're at and your arms where they're at, and put your arms down to your side. Those arms are not extended unnaturally away from the body. They're not making his silhouette unnaturally bigger. I still think that if his arms were in that position and it hit him in his arm from that range, you would say that's a natural position and it's not a handball. Now, Greg Vanney probably disagrees with me, but I think if you look at the images and the moment when it hits his elbow, yes, he's turning as it comes in, but there's not much daylight between his arm and the body. So for me, not a handball. But for me, Doyle, play 2 strikers, Greg Vanney. The second half was a completely different game. Preston Judd came on. They create more chaos, more movement. They force teams to deal with just more decisions defensively in the final third because there are more players making harder runs and there's more space because you're pushing the back line back.
It also helps their rest defense. But one of the things that the Galaxy have been bad at under Vanney is when they turn the ball over, they're a mess. They just don't have enough numbers back. Going to the 3-5-2, you have 3 central defenders back. Those guys weren't taking a ton of risks with their positioning. Brugman is always going to be in the right spot as well as a 6. So it allows them to get to the attacking structure they want, which is, that 3-2-2-3 sort of default structure that we see all over the world now, the top teams. And it requires either one of the center forwards to drop back into the half spaces. I thought Judd does a nice job of doing that with his back to goal. And, if that's the case and Joveljic is going to be crashing the box and he finds really good spots and he's really dangerous there, you get 2 wing backs, one on each side, pressing up. And why would you not want that with Raheem Edwards and Caligari? Caligari from the 2-game sample size we have, really good attacking player, cannot defend at all. So put another center back there in order to put him in a position to succeed. And then all of it works because you're giving Ricky Puig that that free roll.
And I think if you're Greg, sorry, go on. Sorry.
So I think that what Vanny has said repeatedly is he doesn't want to play with two strikers up top because he's worried about what happens defensively. Specifically, he has said that with regards to Chicharito and Joveljic together. And I get that. But at some point, you have to look at the personnel you have. And they have spent so much money and so much time trying to find wingers, and they do not appear to have a single starting caliber winger. And we saw that last week against Portland, where they do the whole like Greg Vanny build out thing where you create an overload on one side and then play across the game channel to get your winger in space on the other side to go 1v1. And Tyler Boyd is just dribbling it off his shin directly into the nearest defender time after time after time. And we have seen that for too long now from the LA Galaxy, that like, yeah, I get why you want to play the 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. It's my favorite formation too, but it doesn't work with the personnel you have. And for 45 minutes, the LA Galaxy playing a 3-5-2, even without Chicharito, were so much better than the Seattle Sounders team that we all agree is one of the three best teams in the league. And it's like, at some point you have, like, your intransigence about this has to break. It has to stop. Because you have the personnel to be a really good team if you just give up your dogmatism about this one particular thing.
And I completely agree with you, especially with Chicharito hopefully coming back soon. If you have even Chicharito, Joveljic leading that line as a two, I think that is where you can be dangerous, because they're two very different players, and I think could be very dangerous within here with obviously Ricky Push underneath being able to feed those balls.
I even think you might see Preston Judd pair with one of those.
Yep.
No chance. Over those two?
Yeah. To me right now, if you ease Chicharito back in, but Judd brings something different than either do. And right now, Joveljic's goal-scoring form is not exactly popping off the page.
Well, it's also a look at what they've been playing like. There's no service from midfield. There's no service from wide areas. They can barely build up out of the back. So, I don't know.
They like Judd. I'm not saying it can't happen, Chicharito and Joveljic, but I would not also be surprised to see.
Hey, Preston Judd was an MLS Next Pro star, like our newly crowned player of the match day. Oh, wait, he was the USL.
USL Championship. The Galaxy just made the transition.
That's right.
30 goals in USL Championship over the last 2 years. And Preston Judd afterwards was like apologizing to Greg Vanny. He said, I'm a forward. It's my job to score. I didn't score. I don't think you have an MLS goal yet, Preston Judd, but I appreciate your dedication to apologizing for not putting the ball in the back of the net. Look, the other thing about the Galaxy, you're talking about personnel. Aude is coming as well. He is a left wing back by all indications. They've now spent $22 on a right wing back and a left wing back. Like, at some point, Douglas Costa did look a little bit active. I will give them, that's one like winger credit, not demerit for the Galaxy, but would love to see 2 forwards and 2 wingbacks. Would love to see it. No wins on the season for the Galaxy. The pressure is mounting. Doyle, what coach is impressing you right now?
Wilfried Nancy. He, I thought, was the best coach in the league last year. Jim Curtin, who won Manager of the Year, also said when he received the award, I thought Wilfried Nancy was probably the best coach in the league last year. And the Crew went out this offseason and they paid whatever they paid to Montreal. I wish we knew that number to get this guy, because the idea was he could do exactly what he's doing, which is to take young players with talent and turn that potential into productivity. And he's done it on the back line with guys like Philip Quinton, and moving Steven Moreira, who's really good as like a modern overlapping fullback last year. He's now playing as a ball carrying center back. If you watch the Crew play, like he's in center back, right? It's the old Eddie Nahar thing that we saw from a couple years ago. He's playing inside, but then he's just like, if you give him a lane, he's going to carry it into midfield. That compromises the opposing midfield shape. And then that puts the attackers in position to do great work. But I kind of sidetracked myself. Those guys are doing great in the back line. Will Sands at left wing back looks like, he'll be starting there for 10 years. And Mo Farsi at right wing back, he's been excellent.
MLS Next Pro, I believe.
There you go. Aiden Morris at he's playing kind of as a box-to-box destroyer next to Nagbe. He's got 3 goals in 2 weeks, and the goals are nice, but what really is impressive is how he's progressing as an orchestrator, which was like the big question with him. Alexandre Matan, they were ready to get rid of this guy. They spent, $2 million on him a couple years ago. He had no goals or assists in 2 years. He's among the league leaders in assists now. I think he's got a goal and 4 assists to start the season. He's been excellent. He's under 25 years old. Jason Russell-Rowe playing well. It's like you get him because you think he can do this, and the early returns through 6 weeks is like whatever they paid, he was worth every penny. And oh, by the way, it's not just getting individual improvement. It's also they play really, really pretty soccer, man. If you want to see the best goal of the weekend was that first Aiden Morris goal in this game. I think it was like a 16 pass buildup. It's ended with a back heel from Zella Ryan right straight into the path of Aiden Morris. Good thing it was Aiden Morris and not Bradley Wright Phillips, because man, did our guy Brad struggle to recreate that on MLS 360.
It was, and not, by the way, not once. We let him retake it, and I think his second one was worse than his first one.
You should have told him he was playing against NYCFC. If he was playing against NYCFC, he would have buried that every time.
I will say, his first one off camera, when we did the first take of it, we were just rehearsing, smashed it. Then we got in so much trouble from our producers saying, do not break the set. So I think I'm just going to give him a little bit of leeway here, but yeah, we gave him some stick, not going to lie.
He got spooked is what happened. Look, you go through this roster, and again, we saw it with Philip Quinton last week, who was released, and Nancy said, no, keep him here, and has played well. Gustavo Vallecilla bounced between Cincy and Colorado, and now looks quite good.
Did not look like an MLS player. I had people from other clubs in my DM saying this guy, there's no way he's going to be an MLS. He was excellent this weekend.
Zawadzki comes in. Max Arfston comes in late on. He's a guy they literally drafted in the super draft from another team's MLS Next Pro team.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, Wilfried Nancy, we've done this a lot over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years maybe, but certainly over the last year. What he's building is incredible. And the style of play is super interesting too, because it is controlling teams via possession, limiting defensive exposure via possession. But also when you look at balls won in the final third, it's very high. And why is that? Because you're possessing in the final third. They're creating some of those unbalanced opportunities there, whether they recycle them or not, like St. Louis, just in a different way. It's really, really cool. We'll see how it lasts. We do have some questions here about the longevity of this, whether it can be sustained. Ash says, are Columbus the real deal? Do you think they somehow look better without Cucho? And then Kaylin Dees said, how quickly do you think the Crew come crashing back down to earth? Doyle, is this just the beginning, or is this a high point?
Yeah, this is just the beginning for them. I think they're a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. And once Cucho gets cooking, and I have no doubt that he will start cooking at some point, I think this team has trophy-winning upside in 2023. I'm not saying they're one of the favorites, but it would not shock me at all if they ended up with some sort of silverware this year. And certainly 2024 going into next season, they're going to be one of the teams that we're talking about a lot heading into next year.
Question for you before we switch to my coach to watch. Brennan says, what needs to change for RSL and Tyler Day? Basically went in on them. Said they haven't looked at it all this year, not creating any quality chances. Central midfield completely open. What's the deal? Can X-Dog cure this?
Do you want me to go?
No. I want Doyle's thoughts.
Oh, you wanted me?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. I thought that was teeing up Galen.
No, yeah. Nobody wants it right now because it's another one.
No, they're just their primary issue right now is their disaster through midfield. Their midfield shape, both with and without the ball, makes no sense, and teams are now blitzing the deep-lying central midfielders because they don't have any easy outlets. And so then, okay, what do? You pass it back versus center backs. They hit a long ball. Long balls get gobbled up in most leagues. And, you end up having to deal with a counterattack coming in the other direction, except you're stretched out because you're hitting long balls to wingers that are releasing early. And also you're only playing with 2 in central midfield, so you're asking 2 to do the job of 3. None of it makes sense on paper. And the way it's playing out on the field actually does make sense, because I think most teams see a team, most managers will see a team like that and say, oh, I know exactly how we're going to take this apart.
It's also decision-making for me, just like little things. And I think that makes me scratch my head, because you have Zach McMath, and yeah, has he been playing good? No. But then you go up against Columbus and you put a 17-year-old goalkeeper in, Gavin Beavers, and it's not his fault, but like, I just feel like that's just a weird decision to do. I mean, go put him in a game where he maybe has a chance. Like now you're crushing this kid. He's 17 years old. He's making his debut in Major League Soccer. I think it was 4 goals, correct? Got put past him. And like, there was just no defending. Like that kills confidence. That kills character as well. And I know everyone's like, oh, it'll build his character. No, it doesn't. Like maybe a little bit thinking, okay, God, I never, ever want this to happen to me again. But like when you're in a losing team already, and then you're given an opportunity as a 17-year-old in a match like that against Columbus, like for me, that's like a head scratcher decision from the manager.
Yeah, especially because they didn't have their number 1 center back pairing, especially because their midfield's a mess. Like if you're going to take a chance, look, Garth Lagerwey had a really good interview with our friend Sam Jones, who does great work for MLSsoccer.com and the Striker. And he talked about the 9+2 rule. And the rule means if you're going to have 2 kids, 2 new faces, if you're going to try to integrate new kids into your first team, make sure it's no more than 2. And so you have 9 regulars around them. With this RSL on this weekend, it was like 6+5. 7+4. And when you putting that many new faces, guys who are not experienced pros in that position on the road against a very good opponent, you're going to end up on the wrong side of the scoreboard. The only question is was it going to be 3, 4, 5, or 6?
Well, can I just say your math was spot on?
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I also say that a new quote
I am the numbers guy.
Federico Bernardeschi. He said, I tried to shoot in the goal, and I was a little bit of a lucky man. He's acknowledging the luck aspect of it, and I just would attribute that to the elements. Anyway, congratulations, Federico. Congratulations to Robin Fraser for being my choice among coaches that are impressing me. And I kind of got laughed off the main stage on MLS Wrap-Up on this one. Look, the Rapids are still in last. I get it. They haven't won a game. I get it. But I think things are starting to turn around for the Rapids. Scoreless draw at home against LAFC. I thought they were the better team. LAFC created almost nothing. Austin created basically nothing in Austin last week. A 1-1 draw that the Rapids very clearly should have won. They just can't finish right now. You can hate me now. You can laugh at me now. But what Robin Fraser is doing is truly impressive, in my opinion. They start the year getting run off the field by the Sounders. Gaps all over the place. Defensive structure, transition moments, terrible. Understandable. Match day 1, you're in Seattle. Rapids never win in Seattle, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at what they've done since, on the attacking side of the ball, even with Jack Price now out and barely around as it is, even without Diego Rubio, they're 10th in the league in XG. They're 7th if you take out penalties. They haven't had a penalty yet. They're dangerous again on set pieces after having a lull last year. Big chances, creating among the most in Major League Soccer. Again, a lot of those off free kicks and corner kicks, but that's the Rapids way. That's okay. They're creating opportunities in transition. They're getting on the ball, and they're finding runners in behind. It's not going to be like intricate build-up play, 20 pass sequences that lead to a goal. It's going to be find an opening, find an angle, get Barrios in behind, get Yappy in behind, get those wing backs in behind into crossing positions. So far, you're looking for an 18-year-old to score, and you don't have Rubio, so you're not scoring. If you look at overperformance compared to the XG, number 1 in the league is St. Louis, plus 5.77. No surprises there. 2 is Columbus, over 5. Atlanta is 3rd, probably due to some golazos from one Thiago Almada. Colorado has the worst. They're underperforming their XG by literally 6 goals this season. Now, I don't know if that's going to be solved, because it's really Rubio and then a bunch of question marks, whether it be Jonathan Lewis or Cabral or Barrios or Cole Bassett at all. Like, that is a huge question mark on the attacking talent, attacking production side. but their defensive structure is back to being Robin Fraser, like rock solid. They lost Price. Brian Acosta comes in the midfield next to Connor Ronan. It's those two sitting in front of 3 center backs, and they're not allowing anything through the middle of the field. If you have defensive structure in this league, if you have a home field advantage like the Rapids do, if you, again, here's the question mark, get goals, you will be a playoff team.
Andrew, they are the 3rd worst defensive record in the Western Conference. With
they gave up 4 goals in the first game.
I know what you've done there. You've just thrown a bunch of stats, XGs out at us to try to make your point.
Matchday one,
crazy. No chance.
You're getting distracted.
Yeah, by all of your nonsense.
No. I'm talking about the performances right now, right in front of us. What we just saw the last 2 weeks from a team that lost their best player and talisman who drove them to any success they had over the last few years, who have had their number 1 forward, number 1 goal scorer out with an injury and just got him back for his first start of the year, who have been starting an 18-year-old forward.
They played Austin. Austin you can't even put into the mix. Austin have been shocking this season.
Austin at home is still not. Austin are in the playoffs in the Western Conference.
One game out of 6. They've looked okay.
So what are you calling this LAFC performance? It's an LAFC first team. What are you calling that performance?
They were terrible on the night, LAFC. On the road, very difficult place to go and play in Colorado. Not taking that away. But you cannot say that Colorado has been well managed. And no, I'm not having it.
What I will say, I'm not sure I 100% agree with Andrew's take. But this Colorado team gave up 4 goals on opening day. In the 5 games since then, they've given up 4 goals. So if you're going to fix this Rapids team, it had to start with defense. So I do think that Robin Fraser deserves some credit for that, especially.
And also credit for being a stable presence within a locker room that could just literally go down the drain immediately.
Sure, but that's any manager's job.
Okay, so he's doing his job. What are we talking about here?
I mean, you can only play the teams in front of you, right?
I understand that, but that's what you're like.
Going on the road anywhere and getting a point, which they did last week in Austin, coming from behind to get that point, that's legit. That's legit. And then shutting out LAFC, that's legit. 4 goals allowed in 5 weeks, that's legit. In the end, I don't think any of this matters because whether Robin Fraser does a good job or not, I don't think we're talking about Colorado down the stretch run and into the playoffs. I just don't. I think the most interesting thing about this team will be can they develop Darren Yappy, or is Cole Bassett going to be good enough on the ball? And Cole Bassett didn't start in this one to be a full-time starting. It just in terms of raw talent, there's just not enough there.
Again, which is a credit to who for getting what they're getting.
And you're in last place. Stop.
So? I'm not talking about 6 games. I'm talking about 2 games in the overall trajectory. I'm talking about a manager who took his team from getting worked over in Matchday 1, who had a catastrophic injury to their most important player and leader, who's out for the rest of the season, who everybody expects this team to just fold.
There's loads of other teams that have. Look at Sporting. Look at all these other teams that have had major injuries.
Which is why I'm not saying Peter Vermees has done a great job this year. Because what have they shown in the last couple of games? Anyway, it's okay. I'll stand out here. I'll be on the island. I'll be on the I'll be on the branch. Nobody's out here saying, myself included, that the Rapids are going to win a trophy this year. I'm just saying the job that Robin Fraser is doing in trying to turn that ship around, I'm impressed by it. That's it. All right, Pat Noonan. The ship that he was captaining was buried in muck and mire. They had to scrap the thing, pulled it straight out of the harbor, refitted it. Chris Albright comes in, and all of a sudden, Doyle, the culture is good.
Yeah.
You can win 1-0 and complain about your performance and say it has to be better, and you're still winning. You're still unbeaten. You're atop of the East. The future is now for FC Cincinnati, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it happened really quickly last year. And they have spun it forward into this season in a way that we expected, with them being at or near the top of the Eastern Conference. I think we all kind of expected that they would be one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the East, but also in an unexpected way, because even with the additions they made in Obina Nwodo and Matt Miazga, and then getting your son Mosquera on loan this winter, I don't think we expected them to be a better defensive team than they are an attacking team. But that's been the case for Cincinnati all season. I think this is their 3rd or 4th shutout of the year already. Fourth shutout of the year already. This is a team that gave up 55 goals last year, something close to that. They are able to win by grinding out results and just being miserable to play against and getting goals off of set pieces or mistakes. And that is a very good sign. And what is a less good sign, and what Pat Noonan himself said is a less good sign, is the fact that they're not playing good soccer. He said after this game, he said it on 360, that this was our worst game of the year. They're down under 40% possession, which is not where they want to be. He wants this team to have the ball, and they certainly have the pieces to have the ball, but they're not doing that at this point. They're not overwhelming teams in the box like they were able to do for good chunks of last year. So it's still a work in progress, but I don't think I think it'll be good fuel for him and for this team heading forward, because I think even though they're at the top of the Eastern Conference, I think they all know that they could play a lot better than they have been.
And what do they have? Correct me if I'm wrong. 5 clean sheets on this, or is it 5 clean sheets? 4 clean sheets on the season. I mean, if you're not scoring goals, but you're keeping clean sheets, and I love this from the manager. I said it on 360 when we did the interview, and I was a little bit shocked, because you don't usually get that from managers that will put their hand up and say, "Look, I didn't prep them properly for this game, and I take full responsibility of that." I'm like, you just got to win. All your players were coming back, or some players were coming back, from international break. You have, Brandon Vasquez, that's only 1 goal on the season compared to last season when he was off to a flying start. And that's what's going to make this team scary, though, is if you have a manager that was taking responsibility for maybe not a great team performance, these players put more trust in you. Someone like a Brandon Vasquez that maybe is feeling like, why am I not scoring like I am last season? But then I have a manager that's taking the roles and responsibility of my actions of not putting the ball into the back of the net. I thought it was just class. His interview was class. It made that me as a player, that's a manager I want to play for.
Accountability.
Yeah.
Motivation. Things that seem to have been missing for a few seasons, 3, let's say, in Cincinnati, are now there in spades. Now, there is some pressure, especially on those guys up top, and I don't think you can discount that completely. Brandon Vasquez obviously linked with the Bundesliga, being scouted, trying to get to the national team. And Brenner, the same thing, misses out on his move, and maybe they're pressing a little bit. But I think you're at a point now with Cincinnati, whereas in the past, we would have said, sort of blind luck, a squirrel finds it. Now it's by design, and there's a ceiling that they can reach yet. So we'll see what they have in the coming weeks. But for now, sitting atop the East while not playing your best, it's a new FC Cincinnati, no doubt about that. Let's address some concerns around the league. The Red Bulls can defend, but can they score? Doyle, can this team create chances?
They can create chances, right? They had 15 shots this weekend, but they're not.
Can they create chances that they can score?
Not yet. We all know how the Red Bulls are going to play. If they're not able to turn you over in bad spots, then they do not have, I think, the game model and arguably the talent to turn that into big chances. Now, granted, they are missing Lewis Morgan, who was their team MVP last year. He's a big loss, but they should have enough. They went out and they got 3 new forwards this offseason. Dante Van Zier's only played 120 minutes, only put 1 shot on goal. Luquinhas, finally broke his streak, I think, last week of not having a goal or assist in 15 games, but it's not like he's out there dominating games. And to me, it feels like everything they do is so linear. Everything is so direct that they don't have the patience to build a chance. It either has to be right there, or it's just, it's not going to happen. They don't and that's, contrast it to Philly or to St. Louis, 2 teams that play a very energy drink soccer style. Those 2 teams, they want to go direct and they will shove it down your throat if that's where the gap is. But if you have numbers behind the ball. They will knock it around a little bit. They have the talent and they have the game model to actually possess the ball, drag you out wide, slip a guy in to the slot, on the side of the box, the Man City zones for pullbacks, and then they get numbers into the box. And the Red Bulls do not have that from what I have seen this year. Like, that is not part of how they play. It's all direct to the 6-yard spot, try to get it there, try to win a knockdown, try to put the ball in the back of the net. And we've seen it for a long time, and teams know it's coming. And if you don't have overwhelming talent, and they have good talent but not overwhelming, it's tough to turn that into consistent goals.
I think for me, at what point do you just put Van Zier on the pitch, give him minutes? I think, like, it would be different if there was someone that was scoring goals, you know what I mean, or being very dangerous, but you brought him over for a reason. Maybe there's an injury, or maybe there's something we don't know. He's not fully match fit. Start him. Put him on the pitch.
Yeah, Struber said it. He's not match fit yet.
Okay.
He's not as fit as we want him to be. That's
what
I
wonder what
my thing is the only way you get fit though is match fitness in 90-minute match performances. So give him the first 45 minutes, give him the first 60 minutes. Like, as a professional athlete, you're match day 6 now. You should be able to play 60 minutes or at least 45 minutes. And if not, then, I mean, they need a new trainer at New York Red Bulls. Like, there's no excuse that he is not match fit yet for at least 45, 60 minutes. So I think that's a cop-out.
I think I agree with you. And I think
Sorry, I got heated there. I don't know why.
No, I like it.
what it's covering up is Van Zier can't play as a center forward, right? He can't play as a lone center forward in a 1. If you're playing a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-2-1, which is what Struber has used at times in the past couple of years, like, he can't be that guy because the Red Bulls need a target man there. They hit so many long balls and they feast off of second balls that he can't do that. But he doesn't really fit in any of the other positions, right? He's not, like, he has to be a second forward. He's not going to play out wide. He's not a playmaker. He's not going to play underneath in a 2. Like, he has to be a second forward. And when they bought him, and when they signed Corey Burke and bought Elias Manuel, they were committing to playing with a 2. They were committing to that traditional Red Bulls 4-2-2-2 that we've seen Leipzig play, and we have seen Salzburg play, and we have seen 4 managers now in Harrison try to play with the 2 up top, and nobody has been able to play it to pull it off. And we saw it from the start in this season. Gerhard Struber went with a 4-2-2-2. It did not work. They get pulled apart too easily. They have trouble pinning teams against the sideline, which is one of the principles of play for this team defensively. They had to go to a 4-2-3-1. He brought it back in the second half of this one. Second half of this one, Van Zier came on for Obed Vargas. They went back to the 4-2-2-2. It didn't work again. So it's one of those things that, like, they can't really address because you spent a lot of money on a DP to play a specific role in a formation that is not working for this team. And it's really going to be interesting to see how they try to solve it, because there's no intuitive way to do it as long as you keep this game model of being ultra direct and the formation model of the 4-2-2-2. They're just not working with the talent that is available to Gerhard Struber.
Obed Vargas
Bradley Wright Phillips out and Sasha out of retirement.
I agree.
You can just come into studio on MLS 360 with me.
I mean, it's funny. Like, we're laughing about it, but like, if you drop Sasha into this team, he would be the best passer on the field by miles. They don't have anybody, and Luquinhas is supposed to do that, but he does not. He does not.
Omir Fernandez is a player who plays for the Red Bulls. Obed Vargas plays for the Sounders.
Obed Vargas? Thank you.
Yes, I just want to throw that quick correction in for you as well. How about the Dynamo, Kaylin? They can keep the ball, but they can't do anything but score PKs.
Hey, but they're winning games. So
they lost this week. They lost this weekend.
I understand that, but I'm just saying they look like a different Houston side. So whether they're scoring, whether they're winning, whether they're losing, they have more fight in them. I haven't seen Houston have this kind of fight in them probably the last 3 or 4 seasons, if I'm being completely honest. Obviously, you bring in someone like Hector Herrera that hasn't performed, and he's starting to perform. He's starting to take that leadership role. I see leaders on this team finally. I see someone like Hector that is pointing people around, guiding people around. players running for one another, players making those two banks of four defensively. I hadn't really seen that with Houston. I didn't really know what Houston was. Houston Dynamo used to be a place where you go play and you're thinking, God, if we can get a point out of playing down here, it's hot, it's humid, they make games hard. You're thinking, check mark. Now last season, teams would go there and be like, this is an easy 3 points. I don't think they're an easy team to beat right now. So I don't care how they're scoring their goals, whether it's from the spot, whether it's from, a sloppy set piece around the 18-yard box. For me, I like the fight in this team. I like that they've changed the mentality, and that is going to progress them further throughout the season by picking up these points.
Somebody's still got to score goals that are not at the spot, though. That's the challenge.
You can say that about a lot of Major League Soccer teams, but look where they are in the standings. Minnesota United could be one of them.
You should have pointed that back at the Rapids. That was your moment. That was your moment to point back at the Rapids. But the Rapids are creating chances, big chances from set pieces as well as otherwise. I don't see that yet for Houston. They're trying to figure it out. I don't know why Sebas Ferreira is not Ben Olsen's guy, but it seems pretty clear that he is not still on the bench for this team.
Which is weird.
Corey Baird, Bossi, Carrasco, Brooklyn Reigns. Like right now, this is not a team from an attacking perspective that's really scaring anybody, and they've got to find a way from the run of play to change that. But they can get on the ball. They can defend. Certainly they can drop PKs, but we need more from them. How about Charlotte, Doyle? Kevin Hoffer hit us up and said, is Charlotte getting results because of or in spite of their manager? That's pretty targeted by Kevin Hoffer there. He said he was frustrated by the in-game changes. Juszczyk had his first ever goal and an assist against Toronto. 2-2 draw. Those goals came in the second half with the win. Just going to throw that out there. But.
Yeah, so all 4 goals were scored with the wind in this one, right?
Yes, correct.
So I understand being frustrated with what we've seen from this team this year, because I do think that Christian Lattanzio has kind of overcomplicated things, and what worked really well down the stretch last season. I think they won 5 of their last 6, and they took apart a good Philadelphia Union team at one point. What worked was, I thought, a pretty standard 4-2-3-1 with Swiderski underneath. The lone center for was Daniel Rios at the time, and he's just completely gone away from that. It's now a 4-3-3, and it's a CFG, it's a City Football Group style 4-3-3, where the fullbacks don't really overlap. They pinch into the middle, and now what he's done is put Harrison Offal, who is one of the great right backs in league history. He's playing left back, and he comes inside as an ad hoc second defensive midfielder when Charlotte are in possession. It plays next to Derek Jones, and that allows the wingers to release early and higher up the field and completely wide. And look, we saw it on the second goal, right? That goal comes from Offal tucking inside from left back to central midfield as the Toronto defense is trying to take away the easy outlet from the center backs to Derek Jones. Offal tucks inside, so now there's suddenly a second central midfield. Bernardeschi wants nothing to do with it, right? Usually if it's the left back coming up, and the right winger will do something like try to get him in his cover shadow. Bernardeschi just stays there, says you could hit that pass, and so he does, and Offal spreads a nice diagonal out, and then it's the cross into Juszczyk's run, and it's 2-2. So you have to give Lattanzio credit for that. They have played a lot better over the past few weeks since he has adjusted some of the personnel. Like Brandt Bronico is not a left back in any system. That said, I'm still scratching my head a little bit as to why not just take what was working so well last year at the end of the season and build upon that. I understand you're a manager. There's only so many of these jobs. You're only going to get so many chances. You want to go out there and play your system and not somebody else's. But when the basic system was working and guys were producing, especially, I still think Swiderski is easily the best player on this team. Why are you going away from that? Why are you adding a new wrinkle where there didn't, in my opinion, there didn't really need to be one?
That's fair. Let's do some quick hits and get out of here on this Monday. New England 1, NYCFC 1. Carly Seal back in the starting 11. Carly Seal scores a goal. NYCFC has a center forward, but then when the center forward leaves, Gabriel Siegel, then Tyus Magno scores from the 9th spot on a header from a classic number 9 run. So make of it what you will, but a 1-1 draw between these two teams that are fighting up and around the top of the Eastern Conference. Still waiting to see that next gear from NYCFC if Santi Rodriguez is not the one sparking it. No second gear at all for Sporting Kansas City. Shutout yet again. Philadelphia Union 0, Sporting Kansas City 0. Maybe some worry for the Union 3-match winless run in league play. We'll talk about them in CCL in just a second. But big news for Sporting Kansas City. Johnny Russell's first start of the season, and Alan Pulido comes off the bench and makes his season debut. Really, really, really big deal for Sporting Kansas City. Tim Melia back in goal as well. Fire scoreless with DC United. Kai Kamara, who sort of fits into what was our bit for a long time, Doyle, about specialized subs. The Ilsinho role, but for forwards, like everybody needs an Alan Gordon. Well, Kai Kamara is kind of turning into that, and he had a header that you would just expect Kai Kamara to finish, and somehow sort of bounced over the goal late on that would have given the Fire a win and some momentum. Yeah, pushed over the bar on that one. But Taxi into the starting lineup for DC United. First time we've seen Taxi, Click, and Benteke all playing together, I believe, from the start. So that's a good sign for DC. Maybe they get Lewis O'Brien in there this upcoming weekend. TBD, still scuffling, trying to find a best 11 is Wayne Rooney. And, Dallas almost had a win, and Frank Boley had a dream debut for the Timbers as he gets a late goal to split those points. Sebastian Lletget back in the 11 for FC Dallas. But let's talk CCL, Kaylin, and let's start with, how about the game on Wednesday? Vancouver Whitecaps against LAFC. 10 p.m. Eastern at BC Place in Vancouver. We are guaranteed of a MLS semifinalist because of this particular matchup. Do the Whitecaps have a chance against LAFC?
I want to say yes, but then I'm like, you also played Montreal, but they're playing at home. They're playing at BC Place. They're playing on turf. You're coming off a massive game. Again, it's against Montreal, so say what you want to say. But it looked like, for me, the red card obviously played a massive role in this one with Montreal, and I think it was the 23rd minute, completely put the game on its head. But that's confidence. Confidence. And what's the kid's name that scored 3 goals? I completely butchered it on set on 360.
Simon Becher.
I was calling him Becher, I think everyone was. So
Becher was like, it's a whole deal. In the pronunciation guide, it was Becher, and now we know it's Becher. I just couldn't imagine a kid from Topeka going by Becher, but but
you look at Becher and you look at just kind of how fluid they were. There were goals coming from all over the place, which is great. So that'll play in their benefit. But when you're going up an LAFC side that just has so much depth, and when you have someone like a Carlos Vela that really hasn't been, oh my god, that cat is amazing, by the way. He's like, guys,
maybe the first talking. Audible meow.
She knows it's her last show.
Yeah,
she knows she wants a little bit of camera
I can't
time.
remember an audible meow. That might be the first.
Goodness.
But you look at this LAFC side with Vela, and he really hasn't looked like the Vela from, a couple seasons, but everyone was saying it on 360. I'm like, it's Carlos Vela, man. I mean, the guy's going to step up. It doesn't matter. I mean, he could be walking on the pitch and he's going to play well. So I do think LAFC is going to take this one, even though Vancouver are home. They're coming off a big win on the weekend. I just cannot see LAFC not doing a clean sweep with this. They have too much depth and too many quality players.
What do you think, Doyle?
Yeah, I mean, LAFC are prohibitive favorites in this. They just, it's not even just about the quality, and obviously if you look at these two teams on paper, it's one has more quality than the other. It's just like the level of ruthless professionalism that we know they can bring to the table. Think back to MLS Cup. They didn't play the Union off the field. They beat them on set pieces. That's the Union are really good on set pieces, and LAFC beat them on set pieces. They just have so many ways to do it. They don't care about playing pretty, though. If they get on the ball, they absolutely still can play pretty. And that is the mark of a champion. That is what you expect to see. The one thing I have is okay, Chicho Arango was a really big part of that last year, and they don't have Chicho Arango. They don't have a Chicho Arango style center forward, and that still concerns me a little bit. So I do think they're ceiling is a little bit lower than it was 2 months ago, but they're still prohibitive favorites.
Tuesday, Union Atlas, 8 p.m. Eastern. We get our Liga MX MLS fill on this. Of course, Leagues Cup will fill our tanks on that one. Subaru Park in Chester on the banks of the Delaware. Philly, as we said, 3-match winless run in the league. They did not rotate on Saturday against Sporting Kansas City. The danger men for Atlas, Julian Quinones and Brian Lozano, Colombian and Uruguayan. there that lead Atlas's attack. Here's a question for you, Doyle, on this Philadelphia team. From Rowan. At what point are we going to be concerned about the Union's midfield not pressing and winning the ball up high, poor passing, ruining counters and possessions? Flock and Bedoya have not been as effective as last year, in my opinion. Should McGlynn and Perea start getting more starts?
Well, McGlynn and Perea are different types of players, right? If you're worried about winning the ball back, you're not going to put either of those guys in front of Flock and Bedoya. As for when you start to be worried about it, if it doesn't happen in these games, right? I think there's just been a very clear differential between the Union's intensity level in MLS play versus their intensity level in CCL play, and it's completely understandable. We've seen it year after year after year from MLS teams and Liga MX teams in CCL. So if it doesn't happen in this series, if they get eliminated by Atlas, then yeah, you start to worry as to whether or not they've lost that spark and that chip on their shoulder and that intensity level that has defined them over the past few years.
All right, mailbag, we'll get out of here. Justin Shepard hit us up about Hernan Losada in Montreal, but I'll widen this one. Which manager is under the most pressure right now to get results and to turn things around with their respective team? Any names jump out to you guys?
God, that is a great question.
Under pressure managers around Major League Soccer.
Colorado. Just kidding.
I don't think so. We don't have enough time on this show to go into the reasons why I don't think so. I would throw out Wayne Rooney.
No.
You don't think
he
so?
only has 1 year on his contract anyways, doesn't he?
Yeah.
No, there's no pressure there.
But isn't there pressure on him to perform and show something that would get him back? I mean, I guess he could probably go back and land in a job in the championship, but you don't think there's pressure on him to show that his sort of like decision making as a
to bring in quality players.
That's what I'm saying, as a sporting director, which is he's basically acting as.
Yeah, but I think what'll happen is he'll get more time, and I think you'll see maybe a rehaul at DC United because the players that they brought in before Wayne Rooney got the position aren't Wayne Rooney players. Like Benteke is not a Wayne Rooney player.
I think he is.
Yeah, I think 100% he is. Yeah,
I think he now is because Wayne Rooney's worked him to say this is what he needs. If you watch any footage of Benteke before he came into this league, he's not one of those strikers that like Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney was known for working hard, high pressing, being able to do all the dirty work. That wasn't Benteke's strengths when he before he came to Major League Soccer.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like vastly different types of players, but like I think that Wayne Rooney very much wanted a target forward. I think he very much wanted. And Christian Benteke is the archetype of a target forward who you get him in and around the penalty marker, and he's going to find a ton of chances.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Benteke was signed after Rooney was hired in DC, and basically the whole thing was like Rooney was taking over much of that decision making. I think he has a lot of his players.
That he didn't actually have a say on the Benteke signing.
Interesting.
Sorry.
Interesting.
Anyhow,
he does have a lot of players he's signed. I'd say Click is that guy. I mean, obviously, O'Brien comes in that same role. Paulson, you'd have to put there. Ravel Morrison would be in that one. He traded for Huon. Went and got Derek Williams via trade. The left back is a guy that he helped sign. I think he's got.
Phil Neville's under pressure?
No.
You don't think so?
Not yet.
Do you think he should be? Sorry, I know it's like a pressure question to ask.
No, it's like look, the way the roster is constructed, and this is not a shot at Chris Henderson because he's been hamstrung by what happened before.
Yeah.
They had one irreplaceable player. That guy got hurt, and they have not been able to replace him. I cannot fault the manager for that. What I do fault Phil Neville for a little bit is his determination to play two forwards and his like really wanting to bring in Joseph Martinez when I don't think Joseph fits for what Miami could be or even should be. So I think that like he's not with it, but like given how hamstrung that team is by self-inflicted wounds and not self-inflicted wounds, I don't think he's under pressure yet. If they don't solve anything over the next month, like if we're still talking about how Miami are winless since Gregory got hurt at the start of May, then he's under pressure. The guy, go ahead.
I'm going to finish your point because I'm throwing a manager in that I think is under high pressure.
I was gonna say Bob Bradley and Pablo Mastroeni are two.
Bob Bradley, 100%. I said it since match day 1, and everyone's like, it's so early on in the season. I'm like, and I get that Insigne's injured, but Unfortunately, with Toronto, and I know Toronto organization and the management and the people that make the decisions there, they're not accepting winning just to win. And especially how much money that they pumped into that club. I mean, going 2-0 up against Charlotte at home at BMO and to draw that one, considering Charlotte's, I mean, the last few matches it looked like a little bit of a different team, but it's not good enough for me for Toronto.
Look, if you're Bob, just go in there. Guys, the wind.
Yeah.
It's the wind. It's the wind. I'm telling you, the wind. Hernan Losada is one that people shouted out. Montreal playing a very, very heavy road schedule away. They've lost all 4 of those road games. And they've had some obvious issues on the roster side too, replacing guys that were sold for many millions of dollars. So I think Hernan Losada will get some time. We always know Montreal is a little bit of a pressure cooker for coaches. I'd also just throw out Greg Vanney. I mean, no wins for the Galaxy after he talked about Supporter Shield in the early season. I know they've had big injuries, but performances just still haven't been there. We saw a little flash. Maybe we'll see more in Matchday 7. But that is it for us. Enjoy CONCACAF Champions League midweek. We'll be back. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know when we're back. On Wednesday in studio. How do I not know that? So we'll see you in person Thursday morning and going forward.
Should I bring the cats out? Should I bring the cats over for a curtain call?
I would love it.
Make sure you bring a litter box. We should be good to go. All right. Adios, everybody. Enjoy your week.